Hi, this is Siddharth Varadarajan, and you are listening to The Wire. We just finished our telecast, our live telecast of the speech by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Knesset in Israel, Israel's parliament. And I would like to spend about 10 minutes essentially giving you my analysis of what Mr. Modi said. His speech was preceded by a very enthusiastic and emotional speech by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A lot of it was in Hebrew, so we aren't fully privy to what he said, at least not yet. But among the few things that he said in English, and I want to emphasize a couple of points before I move on to analyzing what Narendra Modi said. You know, Netanyahu made an important remark at the start of his comments where he used the word alliance to describe the India-Israel relationship. This isn't a word India uses. In fact, during his speech, even a pro-Israel politician like Narendra Modi preferred to use the word partnership. That's the word that Indian diplomacy also prefers. But Netanyahu spoke of an Israel-India partnership, an Israel-India alliance. And importantly, what he said was that in this relationship, India and Israel are a force multiplier for each other. In other words, Israel gets a great deal of ballast support from its relationship with India. And he implied that India likewise benefits in the same way. I'm not entirely sure that that is correct, but why would an Israeli prime minister speak of India in this way? Well, it's pretty obvious, because at a time when Israel and Netanyahu are completely isolated globally, if you look at the diplomatic calendar over the last 15 or 16 months, ever since Netanyahu was indicted by the International Criminal Court, and ever since the genocide hearings began at the International Court of Justice in The Hague, there have been very, very few high-level international visitors to Israel. Marco Rubio, the American Secretary of State, is one of them, and Friedrich Scholz, the German Chancellor. I don't believe there have been any other significant visits. Narendra Modi is, of course, a very, very big catch for Netanyahu, because India is a country that carries enormous weight in the world. And so for him, he sees the visit by Modi as something which essentially endorses his whole approach, is an approach that has brought Israel discredit at the global stage. And by that approach, I mean the way in which he used the October 23 terrorist attack by Hamas on Israel as an excuse, as a pretext to launch the most vicious genocidal war against the people of Palestine. And that's the background. You have more than 70,000 Palestinians killed. You have an ongoing bloodbath in the West Bank and Gaza still, despite the ceasefire. You have Israel making aggressive moves to grab Palestinian territory. And it's in this context where the whole world is looking askance at what Netanyahu is doing, where the whole world is appalled by what Netanyahu is doing, that you have the prime minister of a major global power like India arriving in the country and embracing Netanyahu, giving him what Netanyahu called the Modi hug, and of course coming to Israel's parliament as an important sign of solidarity. So it's obvious that this alliance, quote unquote, with India is something which gives Israel and the Prime Minister of Israel a great deal of confidence, a great deal of support, and this is essentially why for Netanyahu this is such a crucial moment. And he, in fact, got very emotional when he said he would like to thank Narendra Modi for standing by Israel. And that was clearly the statement of an isolated man, of an isolated prime minister, of a prime minister who is reviled in the eyes of the world, and also, I dare say, in the eyes of many, many Israeli citizens, because Israel itself is a deeply polarized country. And so this visit by Netanyahu, by Modi to Netanyahu, is a great shot in the arm for the Israeli prime minister, which is why he was so fulsome about it. There was another significant point that I picked up on. Netanyahu spoke about Modi's 2017 visit, and he said how that visit led to, I believe he said, the trebling of India-Israel relations, and he said we embarked on areas of cooperation that we cannot speak about, we should not speak about. And to my mind, that seemed like a pretty clear reference to Israel's decision back in 2017 to supply the Narendra Modi government with intrusive Pegasus spyware that the government of India under Modi used with devastating effect against opposition politicians, against human rights defenders, against journalists, even against a young woman who had accused the then Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi, of sexual harassment. So the reference to areas of cooperation that we can't talk about is, I suppose, Netanyahu's way of talking about the extent to which Israel and India have been working together. Now, turning to Modi's speech, and I think if I were to characterize this in any one way, if somebody were to ask me what's the headline of Modi's speech, I would say this is the diplomacy of an ostrich. You have the Prime Minister of a country like India visiting Israel at a time when the country stands accused of having conducted a terrible genocide. You have him visiting Israel at a time when the war clouds are gathering in West Asia. There's talk of an imminent American attack with Israeli support on Iran. This is at a time when India itself has warned its citizens in Iran to leave the country by any means possible. And you have Modi going to Israel, speaking in the Knesset, as if this is a completely normal situation where there is no war, there was no genocide, there is no turmoil. And he's talking about yoga, he's talking about Ayurveda, he's talking about the Indian performance of Indian soldiers as part of the British Army in 1918 in Haifa. You wonder which world is he living in? Here you are visiting a country that stands accused of war crimes, a country that is in illegal possession of Palestinian territory, a country that is using every means possible to grab land that belongs to ordinary Palestinians. You're visiting a country which you yourself, your government, has agreed to sign a statement about barely 2 days ago. A statement circulated by the Palestinians and supported by over 80 countries, condemning Israel for grabbing Palestinian land in the West Bank. And you go to this, you go to the country that's doing all these things. You go there as a friend. You go there at a time when the Prime Minister of Israel and the Israeli MKs are looking at you and applauding you. Here is a golden moment for a country that aspires to world status, that aspires to a Security Council permanent seat, to speak a few home truths, to tell your supposed friends that it is not okay to grab Palestinian land. It is not okay to commit genocide. Instead, what you had was Modi again speaking, and this is all part of the, ostrich-like diplomacy. He goes to the floor of the Knesset and expresses condolences as he should, and I don't think anybody will disagree with the fact that you express condolences in the parliament of a country that lost 1,000 plus civilians in the October 2023 attack by Hamas. But then you pretend as if nothing happened after that. You pretend as if more than 70,000 people were not slaughtered by Israel in a genocidal bombing, in a genocidal campaign against the people of Gaza. None of that, figures at all in anything that Modi said. And, I often feel that, who is better placed to tell somebody you call a friend that what they're doing is unacceptable than a friend? Yet this was something that Modi completely steered away from. His only reference to the Palestinian issue was a very, very wishy-washy, very vague statement. He, a little bit late in his speech, roughly halfway through, he spoke about how he spoke about the Abraham Accords, which are pretty much dead in the water right now, as a moment of great hope. And then he said that the Gaza Peace Initiative, which is Donald Trump's so-called Gaza Board of Peace, endorsed by the Security Council, offers a pathway. And he said that this is important to provide peace for all the people in the region. And essentially, he also added that by addressing the Palestinian issue. So there's no reference to the right of the people of Palestine to self-determination. There is no reference to even the two-state solution that India officially stands by. There's no reference to Palestinian statehood. Instead, you have this vague notion of addressing the Palestinian issue. And this choice of language is not accidental, it's deliberate. Because the Israeli government under Netanyahu has completely rejected the very idea of statehood for Palestine, the very idea of the two-state solution, which is a bit of a fiction today, frankly, given the behavior of the Israeli state, but it's nevertheless an important legal principle that the people of Palestine have as much right to their own state in that region with clearly demarcated borders, as do the people of Israel. And that is what the two-state solution is all about. And this is something which the Israelis have rejected. And again, you can see our ostrich-like prime minister not wanting to offend his Israeli hosts in any way by speaking a few home truths, completely avoiding any reference to the two-state solution, and instead talking in a very, very vague way about the Gaza Peace Initiative, offering a pathway for durable peace for all people in the region, including by addressing the Palestinian issue. So it's such a vague, wishy-washy rendering of India's traditionally robust stand on Palestine, where we have stood for the rights of the people of Palestine to self-determination, to their own state, with East Jerusalem as their capital. None of that figures in Mr. Modi's speech. Instead, he talks about, he prefers to talk about trade, defense cooperation, all of those things, of course. And then he talks about yoga and Ayurveda and the importance of Israeli students visiting India, so on and so forth, but completely avoids the burning questions of the day. And I think that this is the kind of speech that somebody who is keen to avoid any kind of negative reaction from his hosts wanted to make, and that's exactly what Modi said. As I would like to repeat, that this is a further departure from India's traditional position on the importance of a Palestinian state. There's no mention of that whatsoever, and instead you have a kind of conscious positioning, other kind of erasure. Like Mr. Modi spoke about how in the 1950s and 60s there was great admiration in India for Israel, which of course there was. And he mentioned Acharya Vinoba Bhave and Jayaprakash Narayan, looking at the kibbutz and Israeli Israeli use of the ability to farm, to pursue agriculture in arid or desert areas, completely forgetting the fact that by 1967 and after 1967, when Israel is an occupation, illegal occupation of the Palestinian territory on the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, even somebody like JP, who may have spoken out in defense of in praise of Israeli science, technology, and agricultural use, etc., became a strong critic of Israel's occupation of Palestinian land, and remained till his dying day a strong supporter of the right of the Palestinian people to their own country. So this erasure of history, talking of JP in some vague way as a supporter of, as an admirer of Israeli agricultural prowess, but not talking about what he actually said as Israel's policies became more and more apparent in the 1967 war and after, is another example of Mr. Modi completely avoiding any difficult areas, any difficult topics, and going as far as possible to appease his Israeli hosts. This appeasement was further on display when, it seemed to me at moments in his speech that Mr. Modi was speaking to the prime minister of the Jewish state of Israel as a representative of a Hindu state of India. So, for example, when he was comparing festivals, I think it's a great idea to compare Diwali and Hanukkah, for example, two festivals that share things in common. Although I have to mention, I was surprised by Mr. Modi reducing the celebration of Diwali in India to the somber lighting of lamps when his party people agitate to burst crackers. But so Mr. Modi drew attention to the similarity between Hanukkah and Diwali. He drew attention, they're not very similar, but he drew attention to at least the timing of Holi and Purim. But there is a festival which will be widely celebrated in India and will be widely celebrated by nearly 20%, if not more, of the people, citizens of Israel, which is the festival of Eid, which is going to come in a few weeks' time. No mention of that, of course. That is as much, Eid is as much an Indian festival as is Diwali or Holi. And for the Prime Minister of India to again, completely avoid any references, any talking points that his hosts would find dissonant in some way, I think underscores the extent to which Mr. Modi is going out of his way to appease his Israeli hosts, which of course raises the big question. Normally in diplomacy, you have what are called reciprocal visits. Mr. Modi visited Israel way back in 2017. And since then, an Israeli prime minister has not come to India. It's unusual then for India to make a second prime ministerial visit. And the question is, why the visit at this time? I was speaking to an Israeli friend about this, and he offered what I thought was a pretty good explanation, which is that as far as Modi is concerned, for him, the big demand, apart from whatever defense stuff India wants to buy, which Israel will sell anyway, what Mr. Modi wants through this effusive display of support for Netanyahu and for Israel at a time, as I said, when Israel is on the verge of joining the US in a war against Iran, when Israel is grabbing more and more Palestinian land in the West Bank and and no let up in Israeli violence even after the ceasefire in Gaza. What Mr. Modi wants is to somehow use the support of Israel in order to repair his relationship with Donald Trump. And I think that this is really a major problem and a challenge for Indian diplomacy, that despite having learned the hard way that the relentless pursuit of proximity to the United States comes with a price, and now that price is staring you in your face, Mr. Modi still does not appear to have learned his lessons. Instead, he would like to use Netanyahu as a crutch, provide Netanyahu a great boost by being perhaps the first, maybe the second, third, or maybe the fourth major world leader to visit Israel since the indictment of Netanyahu for war crimes. What he hopes is, so he gives a boost to Netanyahu. What he hopes is that Netanyahu will help help repair relations with America. So all told, I would say, judging by Netanyahu's comments in Parliament and Mr. Modi's speech, from the Indian point of view, this is, as I said, diplomacy of an ostrich. You want to completely duck any of the difficult issues. You don't want to speak, even as a friend would tell a friend, that offer friendly advice to Netanyahu and to Israel, that what they're doing is destructive for the region. It goes against the wider interests of the people of Israel themselves. None of that figures. None of that Mr. Modi wants to talk about. Instead, you have this very, very artificial, feel-good performance, which is aimed at boosting the domestic political credentials of Benjamin Netanyahu at a time when he continues to face a very, very divided public, and of course to give a boost to Mr. Modi, who has suffered somewhat of a setback on his reputation at home as being a diplomatic master because of what Trump has done. This is some attempt to repair his image. we leave it there, and we will come back to you, of course, tomorrow with more analysis as more details emerge of Mr. Modi's visit, the agreements that are on the anvil, etc. So do keep watching The Wire for more coverage of this visit. Thank you very much.